Well, we were just talking about how we don't know what to talk about. So, unless you do, we're just going to randomly chat, I guess.
Okay. Well, um, which is the article that interested me, Carolyn? The one about the summary of. I have to pull it up.
Oh, the summary of 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a summary, but it's just a lot of numbers. What is that?
Well, for our purposes, I think we summarize numbers according to what we believe is important. I think most people will take a number, but they don't know what to do with it. When it comes to
Right.
immigration, I believe that we're not bad not judgers. What's it called? We have enough grasp that I think we can do something with numbers. I hear Tom actually work through numbers quite well. Not to punt it to you, but it seems to me like most people need a little bit more context to their numbers.
Yes, to know what to make of these.
Yeah. And we were just talking before you signed on about how easy it is to get lost in thinking about things sort of in a larger context and forget the human impact of all of this stuff. So the numbers, I think, are helpful in that regard anyway, because it gives you a sense of like, oh, 1,000 people were touched by this thing and affected in some way, as opposed to just some mysterious other that had some mysterious problem that we'll never know about.
Yeah.
So I guess
whether
that's
it's the number of people sprayed or whether it's the number of people, that are being turned back at the border in comparison with other years. I remember the first time I saw the numbers of, when the wall was starting to be discussed, how many immigrants we had in the country. And that's when I started looking at the 100 years before. The percentage of foreign born has not been over the early 1900s. The numbers are higher, but the percentage of the country that is foreign born is not that high compared to other times. Except that after the 40s, things went down so low and people, second generation kids integrated. And so it seemed like there were no immigrants.
Was that because of World War II? Largely
World War II and the laws changed, but basically they shut down anything because people started coming back from the war, and now they started taking their jobs. It was less pull after the war ended. There's push factors and pull factors. There was very little reason to let people in until the 1960s reform. Things were just coasting. There was no pull inside. That's when the Braceros program also ends. We don't need Mexicans anymore, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, for me, those numbers made my sense of reality change a lot. The historical view of numbers centered me as to, one, the numbers aren't as bad as they say they are, but two, this is a natural process. This is what happens. People come and go. This country and 10 other countries. It's the same thing over and over again because we're humans. We humans go to the bathroom and we humans move when things get really bad. So for me, that's a great sense of learning from numbers that people gave me during that period. But anyway, but there's other things that you put out that do what is you put out not you, but the number of people coming into the country. It was that source that you first introduced me to, the library.
Yeah, the thing from New York, from SUNY, or whatever it's called. I can't think of the name of it either.
Yeah, it's kind of anyway. But the numbers make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Track.
Track. Track is a great place to pick up just raw information in nice graphical form, the numbers. But anyway, we can. Some of the numbers I think are worth analyzing. I was happy to see the one article that really stayed with me since you sent it, Carolyn, was the Santos legal record. The
DeSantis? No.
DeSantis legal record, that is the consequences of him sending people and busing people and flying people up north.
Oh, that one. Okay.
So just to summarize, I don't know if you got to it, Tom, but ever since DeSantis started, trying to compete with the governor of Texas,
Abbott.
Using their names. I don't want to use their names because that's exactly what they want, is to get used to their names. So the governor of Florida starts doing and trying to upstage the governor of Texas, who had started this whole thing. Governor of Florida then gets a slush fund to start doing some of this, and he sends the one that he really got him in trouble was, let's take a plane. Actually, let's hire a friend to rent us their plane, go pick up people in Texas. We'll bring them to Florida, and then we'll ship them from Florida up north to under the guise of sanctuary cities or sanctuary places, and they send them up north. And it turns out that he used money. This slush fund was being funded not through the legislature, but through an appropriation or a sectioning off the interest of ARPA money. ARPA money was supposed to be used for the consequences of COVID. Justify that to the federal government. And he's been sued. He's been sued at many different levels, but one for using federal money in the wrong way, using COVID money in the wrong way. Two, for not allowing the legislature to appropriate money for these purposes. He's deciding stuff that maybe he shouldn't without supervision. Three, that he sent them, that they picked up the people, I'll never forget, I don't know why, Perla, that they used a next military lady to pick up and recruit the people in Texas. And when they got to north, when they got to Maine, they didn't get what they were told. So that means then they basically entrapped the people, lied to them, and therefore the lawsuit says that they were holding people against their will under false pretext. And then there's the lawsuit from Texas that says you also recruit those people in our place, and it is wrong to pick up people in Texas for under lies. So now they're getting a lawsuit up in the north in Massachusetts, a lawsuit in Texas, and obviously then lawsuits in Texas against these actions that he did to take people up north. That's my recollection of the summary of the article you sent.
You remember it way better than I do.
Well, for me, it was important because once the headlines fade, it's easy to then forget that something continued. And in this case, as you know, the courts take a long time, and so the update on this was that these lawsuits are progressing, and that said governor of Florida has to deal with the consequences of having used public money for in ways that he shouldn't have, from sources that he shouldn't have. And while he has power, great power in Florida, I was just there last month, and listening to a couple of locals, things are bad. Things are bad because the governor has made it very hard for teachers, for all kinds of things, but certainly for pro-immigrant advocates. So anyway, I just think it's great. Let's use the system to shut down what people feel, is their prerogative, to make use of people as pawns for their own nefarious political purposes. And that governor, I hope that people don't remember his name. I think that he, as he splashes onto the Republican candidacy, that he gets crushed by the national spotlight, because this kind of stuff is what he did to attract his limelight to himself. So anyway, that's the summary of what that governor of Florida has been doing, what he's been sued for, and I hope that they win. Just like the ex-president, that he gets sued and sued and sued until, eventually he gets nailed on a couple of these things. So.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, who lives in Austin, is equally irate at the governor of Texas for using tax dollar money to send all those buses out.
Yeah. And it's, they deserve the limelight in that they've earned it. They created, I have to give them kudos. They created something ingenious to draw attention and create news. They deserve that limelight, but let's give them, the red light on them, not a green or a pretty light. Give them what they earn, which is shame on them for doing this kind of job.
Right. And they both have presidential aspirations.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason, I think, for doing it.
Well, you can do like Obama and many other presidential candidates, write a book and draw attention to yourself in that way, or you can create these crazy things.
So that is one part of Trump's legacy, I think, was he emboldened a lot of people on the right-hand end of the spectrum to really behave in transgressive ways, push the envelope up to, and in many cases past, the legal limits. And what what you're describing the Florida governor did is actually more or less illegal. He may still get away with it because he has a lot of power, and there are a lot of people who will protect him or try to protect him. But this is yet another legacy of Trump that's going to be with us for a while, is this notion that anything goes as long as it's in the cause of whatever they imagine that cause is. And I think
and they're tempting the rest of us to, let's say the Respect for Marriage Act, things that we had assumed were normalized by, not by habit, but by unanimous consent.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of now no longer, because they questioned it, and the line was fuzzy, and the line has been fuzzy on many things, and we had assumed that decency had a line. When these people push and they say there's no line here, and then they step all over the place, and they leave footprints, and they're daring for legal trouble because they've won at that before. For me, it's a legacy of that ex-president to say we have not codified ourselves enough to protect that which we value.
Yeah.
And so we should do it. We should do more of it. And I hate to think of more laws that send all those people to be messing it all up by writing something that isn't going to be enforceable or whatever else. But they've left us no choice.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's really sad. I don't know how many times we've talked about this. I know I've mentioned this about 1 billion times on this show. It's the saddest thing of all for us anyway, is that immigration has become a topic to be employed in this way. It is now a political topic. It's a litmus test for which side you're on, what you think about immigration and all that stuff. And the losers will always be immigrants. They'll always lose in this battle, because even when we win a little bit, somebody's going to attack that win and find ways to make it as difficult or uncomfortable as possible for the winners. Like if some so-called Dreamers bill did finally get through, that there's going to be a whole contingent of people, like they were with the Affordable Care Act, who are going to be trying to take it down and twist it and ruin it in some way. And so these people will continue to be targets in one way or another, even if and when they become fully legalized. They're still going to be targets because of the politicization of the topic generally, and that's a really unfortunate legacy, I think.
Yeah, for me, the fact that immigration is again one of those topics that becomes a divider is no surprise. I think that the most political savvy people are always looking to see what they can instrumentalize for their own gain. And it may be immigration, it may be abortion, it may be, it could be the knee. Over the last month, I've had a lot of contact with, especially family that is very far right, and the use of code words to signify where they stand or where they won't. Oh, I watched. These were words from a family member. Oh, I used to watch NFL until the whole taking the knee crap started. And I thought to myself, wow, you have no sense of what that meant. You have you got the wrong message from somebody exhibiting a protest, and you signed off a whole recreational activity because what you've been told that means. It's really scary. We managed to spend a lot of time together without getting into it, but I was like many times checking myself. Maybe that's what it was. Is this my sense of reality? Is their sense of reality? Is this a word that I shouldn't use because it'll trigger something and we'll end up in an argument? It was successful in that we all ended up with peace on earth. But it reminded me how far I am to the left. I think I'm a centrist. But when you put the far right next to me, I have a long distance to go to understand their position. So anyway, I want to mention one other one, Carolyn, because I like that as you research, you share them with us because it complemented another thing. This stuff about suing Catholic Charities and other groups, humanitarian groups at the border for providing food and shelter to the people.
Oh, yeah, that one.
I felt that was a good article to highlight something that happens because of what is needed for change. If there are people suffering, a church has more than the obligation to do something about it, regardless of what the laws are. And in this case, them providing food and shelter. The reason that one stuck with me is because I had, remember when we started looking at the El Paso statistics, the dashboard for El Paso? Well, I ended up signing up to El Paso Matters, which I think must be a news clipping organization, something. But one of them was of public officials going out to distribute food to the migrants at the border. I mean, for the migrants in their city.
In the shelter.
Yeah.
Or outside the shelters.
Well, yeah. In this case, and that's the part that hooked me, was I saw one of the pictures, and one of the pictures is a place I have been more than once. It's a place where you take the bus out of El Paso, because there's the Greyhound, but there are several companies that specialize in moving people along the border cities on both sides. So you can pick up the bus in Chihuahua, you pay $5 extra. You can buy it to Juarez, or you pay $5 extra, and they'll bring you across the border and leave you at their depot, which saves you not much, in that you still have to get out of the bus, cross, get checked, and everything else, and then you climb back on the bus, and the bus brings you. But at least you have a ride over the darn bridge that, in the heat of the summer, can be really, really ugly. But anyway, I've also taken that bus when I've needed to when I'm in El Paso, and I need to go back to Chihuahua, and you can pick it up in El Paso without going to the bus depot in Juarez. But that same bus I took once when I needed to go see my brother in Arizona, and that bus for $25, you pay your $25 because that's what will take you to LA, but it does drop off people, I think in 1 or 2 places in Arizona. It just stops, you get out, and then you keep going. You've already paid to LA, but they don't give you a fare to anything less. They fill their bus with LA bound people. But I got off one time. I took it one day and I said, isn't there a lower rate? And he says, $25 to go to LA is a really good rate. So they're kicking you no.
It is a good rate.
Mm-hmm.
You get off when you want to, but whatever. Anyway, in the background of one of these pictures was that's where they set up the tables to give food. Tamales. Oh man, I said, I want to go get tamales there. But anyway, I just thought that's the kind of bold action that it takes. And I wish that we would either look for, create, or find a way to say, we resist the ugliness. We do not agree with these governors. We, as a city, we have been preparing for a bus, for a bus or two of people to arrive. It hasn't happened yet, but we are that kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was made illegal, I'm pretty sure that we would still do it.
Yeah.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Anyway, those are the 2 articles. The other stuff and the numbers, I don't recall as well, but those 2 stuck with me. Thank you for providing them. I'll provide the links.
So I had a conversation a couple days ago with my cousin's wife. I don't know if there's such thing as a cousin-in-law, but they live in Albuquerque, and I had to ask them via email, because you hear all this negative stuff out of Texas and out of Arizona, but you never hear about New Mexico. Granted, it has a smaller, shorter border, but not that much shorter than California's.
Mm-hmm.
So so we talked, and she said, in general, New Mexico's a lot more liberal. I don't know if it's because it allies itself to be more Western than Southern, or what. And Albuquerque's very immigrant friendly and welcoming. But a lot of the assumptions, and it may also be just that they don't engage in the vocabulary of crisis and emergency, and instead do the good work that needs to be done to get people where they need to be. And a lot of them are just passing through Albuquerque, but they're very welcome there. And so that was kind of a curiosity thing on my part, but it was also really nice to hear about another place that's very welcoming.
Yeah,
I have a bottle of Albuquerque, so I get some of that.
When I think of New Mexico, I don't think of a very liberal place at all.
Well, she said, and she's lived there for over 20 years. But she said, in general, it has a more liberal bent, but she also said it's one of the poorest states in the nation as well, so they don't have a lot of resources. But she's, the district that they're in, the congressional district they're in, they just had an election, and she's really happy with the person who got in, because the opponent was had leanings towards the most recent last president, and she was appalled by that person. So anyhow, but just like here, you can have a Republican administration and governor, and that could change things, and that could happen there too. But it was just refreshing to know that there are other places that value welcoming over than politicizing.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. I think one of the balances in New Mexico is that it's nearly 50% Hispanic.
Yeah.
And so they have had a Republican governor, I forget what her name was, 8 years ago. Maybe I'm messed up on the timing, but as much as she wanted to take it further right, and she has some support, they have the same problem as our state. You have a very you have Democrat cities, and then you have the rest of the state. But you also have the problem of you want to stir the people up to the right, except that most people in New Mexico just don't want any government intervention in anything. It is the Western frontier mentality. And therefore it becomes harder to implement junk because it's also government heavy. It's one of the, I don't know, when I matured a little bit more in understanding politics is, Republicans say they want fiscal conservatism, but it's only when it's not in their favor. Give away, have a tax cut for everybody, but not really, just give it to the high end or whatever else. The lines are, and then in many ways, also the Democrats, whatever their lines are, as long as it doesn't impinge on what they would like forward. But in New Mexico, in other Western states, I think it's very interesting how they're fighting against themselves. We want no government intervention, but we're very poor, so send us more money. Well, the money comes with all kinds of attached strings, right? And so, what do you do? Which side do you take? I don't know. For me, that's part of the consequence of just living in a very complicated system in which you really can't push one button without affecting the other buttons. So, when it comes to immigration, though, in New Mexico, for me, I lived there. I graduated from high school there. I was not very aware, although I did run for governor as a student. Student governor.
Did I hear you right?
Yeah, it was so funny. Anyway, but I didn't know what the heck was going on, except that it was one more way to just go party in Santa Fe. But I imagine that's what real politics is too.
Very possibly.
Coincidental, this is an anecdote, and then I'll shut up. Back in 2005, no, it was 2006, when they were starting to talk about defense, but especially they wanted to slow down the bill that was before Congress on legalizing people. So the Republicans said, we need to know what the people think. And so they called for town halls, or whatever they're called, hearings in localities. And my mom was very sick, so I was visiting New Mexico a lot at the time. And it just so happened that the congressman from Texas called for one, but it ended up to be in the town in which my mom lived, Las Cruces. And it was chaired by a Republican from Connecticut or something. It was like some really weird combination. And they were holding